Rabbit Rush is a secret masterclass in game design, unlike anything else you've ever played. But akin to many obscure classics, it was very nearly lost to time, never to be played again. Before we jump into this one, let me take you on a quick journey. Let me show you how I found it. Originally, I planned to make a video on bartender simulators, Valhalla, Coffee Talk, and the likes. I was going to cover a visual novel called Necrobarista, made by a small Australian studio in Melbourne, Route 59 Games. It's their only title, their only published work. However, it's not the only thing that the team had worked on before. Lead developer for Necrobarista, Chen, had been part of a project called Rabbit Rush during his time at university, more specifically at RMIT. I thought for the sake of getting some gaming context, it'd be worth playing through. I found a trailer and it seemed cool, sort of Super Hexagon vibes, with a punchy visual style more akin to Monaco. But it was a complete change of pace from what Necrobarista presented. Kevin's first work then seemed like a complete outlier, an odd entry into the already short history of Route 59. But I just couldn't find this game anywhere at all. I looked up and down the internet and managed to find the old site that it was hosted on, with some help from the Wayback Machine. But not that much help because the download links there were just broken. Yet despite that, on forums and in reviews, this game was consistently highly praised. Not a bad word was said about it. It won an honourable mention at the 2014 Independent Games Festival, a pretty competitive period in the history of indie gaming. For what's presumably a debut student project, that's incredibly impressive. Fortunately though, my search was short-lived. I stumbled across Irish game reviewer Stephen Beirne, who made a video review for Rabbit Rush and analysed it in great depth for video game magazine The Arcade Review. After I dropped him a message, he voiced similar concerns.
Hi meikkon, thanks for this comment and the trip down memory lane. When I noticed the game's site was fading from the internet, I found a working copy on the Internet Archive and I took a backup of the game personally. I tried contacting the developers at the time, but I didn't get a response. You can find the game via this Google Drive link.
Bingo. Time to download this thing. I played it and quickly realised what a hidden gem he'd found. As you could probably guess from the title, this game is about rabbits. You start with 150 of them and you're trying to keep them alive. They can breed with one another and they breed fast. Get a bunch of rabbits in another home and you'll quickly have 200, 300, 1,000 rabbits under your control. But the screen is constantly scrolling. Life as a rushing rabbit is aggressively nomadic. If you don't move your empire of bunnies frequently enough, they'll fall off the screen and disappear for good. That's far from the only concern you'll have. Run into any green spiders and you'll have to hope your lagomorphic horde outnumbers the antagonizing insects. It's a harsh battle in Rabbit Rush. Literally survival of the fittest. It's bizarrely entertaining and anyone can play it. It's a Unity game, it's not huge in size, about 250 meg, and it'll run smoothly on most low-end kit without much graphical sacrifice. It's definitely worth your time. Although honestly, I'm not sure if I'm the target market. People who like micromanagement and real-time strategy will just be amazing at Rabbit Rush. You have to constantly make efficient cost-benefit calculations in your head, but I can never keep up. My runs often suffer from egregious misclicks brought on by scrolling stress. It's intense, but the dopamine kicks you get from riding a rabbit high are very novel. It feels weirdly awesome to shove 300 bunnies into the roving equivalent of an AT-AT walker and then just have them all spill out as they keep climbing up and up and up and up and up. Once your bunnies are inevitably eradicated, you're taken to a graph charting your breeding successes, rewarding you for your animal pilgrimage. You're given tokens and cash. Spin the slot machine to get upgrades for future runs. This feels good in the first half as there's plenty to be won. Once you get lots of power-ups, though, it kinda sucks having to wade through all these bad rolls just to get the upgrades you actually need. Why can't I just buy them from this guy? Maybe not. I don't really trust him. That bunny is creeping me out, just kinda staring casually into my soul there. Whatever. Even the shop music is characteristically intense. All of the in-game songs are by Radio Giraffe, who you can find on SoundCloud. While I'm not usually a fan of chiptune, it really suits Rabbit Rush, building an immersive, intense and arcadey atmosphere. All else fades away, leaving your pixelated rabbits at the fore. But yeah, that's the game. One weird thing I did notice was this house in the main menu. All of the rabbits seem to be flocking to it, but you can't select it. I mean, I'm not sure why they're doing that. Maybe someone better at this game can beat a few more levels, see if the house does anything. Anyway, let's play another round. Get some more tokens for the slot shop. Let's get into the forest now. Get these... That's cute. It's not my Steam notifications. It's not a Steam game, obviously. The game itself. It's just emulating that. Lol. Okay. Just lol. You still playing that game? Yes, I suppose I am. I mean, I've not been playing it for a very long time. Probably like tops half an hour. Lol, you should come over. Bored as hell. Okay. Didn't expect this game to take an Emily as away turn. But whatever. Oh, yeah, that's an easy way to increase the age rating. I mean, to be fair, a title revolving around breeding. Probably going to raise some eyebrows at Peggy, but I guess this isn't one of those games. It's not coming out on the Switch, is it, Rabbit Rush? Do you know about the hack? No, but now that I think about it, this game might be good on the Switch. In the shop, press the carrot 4 times. Oh! This is like an Easter egg mechanic. Oh, cool. I wonder what I did to trigger that. I mean, maybe the carrot will give me some new power-ups. That would actually be pretty decent. Anyway, back to the shop. I'll spin a few more tokens, see if I get anything good. I best save a few for this carrot business, actually. Just click on that now. See if this does... Whoa, 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 whoa! Okay. Is that... Oh, is that on the actual computer? What would happen if I click this? It would... The computer turns off. No longer immersed in Rabbit Rush, you return to the arcade. Screensavers flicker on the many other stationary computers. Only yours is blank. You gain control of your body. You walk away from the machine and you browse. Doors. You try to open one up, but no luck. A note has been left behind on one.
My dear friend, I hope you're well. It's been a long time since we last met, hasn't it? I know you've been trying to find me, and I'm sorry for running away. But there is a secret I can no longer bear alone. Please find me. P.S. In the back room, you will find the first key. I'll see you soon.
A strange dystopic drawing hangs on the right side of the room. Everyone attached to screens, white light blaring in their unmoving faces. The desk itself is nothing special. Another computer, some notes, a mug. You pick up the key and head out. Moving back up the arcade, you head to the front door. And it opens in an instant, and you step out of the video game emporium, where the story all started. Out into the crisp night air, where more empty space awaits. You cross the street and turn to face the exterior. Game Palace, all in red. You make your way down the street, and the tunnel is, in a rather odd twist, blocked off by 100 bricks. You make your way around the side of the Game Palace before colliding with an untimely, incredibly large mirror that reflects all but you. Confused, you head towards the original street. You spot a bus stop as you walk. Another note.
My dear friend, seeing this bus stop reminds me of all the times we sat here waiting for the bus home. You'd always sneak back into the arcade and we'd miss it again. I could never stay mad at you, and we'd spend another hour or two wasting our pocket money. If only we could go back to those times.
You briefly wonder who these notes were intended for, before moving along. No chance of a bus today. The other alley is obscured by another mirror. A note hangs off it. You grab the page and read.
My dear friend, my eyes must be getting old. They often see things in mirrors that don't quite reflect reality.
A metal bar rests underneath. are joined to its own reflection. You decide, almost reflexively, to grab that too. You pull, and to your bewilderment, the mirror comes with you. It encapsulates the whole street in reflection, and you keep pulling. Suddenly, it folds down. The mirror is fixed, and the street appears narrow. You try to move the mirror again, but it won't budge an inch. Then you notice the shop names. They light up, try to tell you something, lead you somewhere. You follow their path, and there's another note, reflected. But from what? It appears in the mirror, and then mysteriously appears next to you.
My dear friend, do you remember this place? Do you remember this street? Do you remember?
You place the note back, and the mirror has gone. You jolt back for fear of glass, yet there is none. The street returns to its original form. You notice another message. Welcome to Level 1. Level 2 may now be accessible, you suppose. You try the alley once again, now mirrorless and open. On the newfound back streets, you find another note. But nothing is written on the page itself.
Consider the following scenario. There is a closed room. In this room there are two people. Let's call them Person A and Person B. One of the two is a murderer. Let's say Person A. Person A knows that they are the murderer. Person B, on the other hand, knows that they are not a murderer, and thus deduces that Person A is the murderer. Nonetheless, is there any way for Person B to prove this to Person A?
The girl with the orange scarf frowned.
You're trying to confuse me, aren't you? They both know the answer. Just because they don't mutually acknowledge this doesn't matter. The real question should be, is there any reason for Person B to prove this to Person A?
I blinked. Damn, she's getting better at this. Well, I explained, since you seem so convinced that I was the one who farted, I'm just pointing out that no matter what you try to do, you can never prove it.
So it was you.
Never said that. We glared at each other. The two of us were in my room. I sat on my usual spot, in front of the computer, while the girl sat on the floor, back leaned against my bed. A small paperback titled Burgundy Dreams, an autobiographical journal, rested in her hands. A smirk, a cough. We broke into laughter. The girl half scowled, half smiled at me.
That was disgusting, though.
I shrugged, returning to the monitor. Just living as nature intended. The girl smirked.
Yeah, hunched over a computer 14 hours a day is certainly what nature intended.
Oh boy, here we go again.
You know, if only you'd get up and exercise once in a while.
Hey, I get plenty of exercise.
Walking to the convenience store does not count as exercise.
Have you seen the size of those bags? I swear they weigh 30 kilos or something.
You use a trolley.
The slope on the way back is pretty steep.
We should go for a run.
I opened my mouth for a retort and promptly closed it again when I saw the flash in her eyes.
Cut the crap. Let's go.
I grabbed my coat. In July, the city of Melbourne has two types of weather. Rain, or rain with a 25% chance. It was most definitely the former and perhaps the latter today, and a light drizzle showered our heads as we ran through the park. So, I panted, explain to me why we're currently running through the rain. The girl looked back and grinned manically.
Isn't this great?
I sighed, or tried to at least. It came out more as a wheeze. When she got in the mood, nothing could deter her from her spontaneous marathons. One time during high school, she abruptly decided while walking home that she'd run to the beach because she wanted to see the sunset. Of course, she never bothered telling anyone about this, so her parents freaked out and contacted everyone they knew. 5 hours and a good deal of drama later, she turns up on my front door, covered in sand. But a story for another time. I'm running out of breath. 15 minutes in, and I'm feeling the burn. My socks! I panted. Feel disgusting! The girl rolled her eyes.
Fine, we'll take a break.
We sat down on a nearby bench to rest. The bench was wet, of course. but the two of us were drenched already, so we didn't care. An onlooker must have found it quite the surreal sight. Two people sitting by themselves in the middle of an empty, raining park. The silence was unbroken, and the pattering rain only seemed to magnify the stillness of the situation. It wasn't an awkward silence, though. Aside from our casual, nonsensical banters, the two of us never really talked too much. Whenever she came over, she'd just read her books or fiddle around with her phone while I played my games. And so we just sat there for a while, in the rain, just resting, thinking, being.
Hey,
The girl with the orange scarf looked at me. I looked back, and in that fleeting moment, I saw fear, a deep, paralyzing fear, trapped behind those eyes.
don't forget.
In July, the city of Melbourne has two types of weather: rain, or rain with a 25% chance. It was most definitely the former and perhaps the latter today, and a light drizzle showered our heads as we ran through the park. So, I panted, explain to me why we're currently running through the rain. The girl looked back and grinned manically.
Isn't this great?
In July, the city of Melbourne has two types of weather: rain, or rain with a 25% chance. So, I panted. The girl looked back. Explain to me why we're currently running through the rain.
Fine, we'll take it.
The city of Melbourne has two types of weather: rain, or rain with a 25% chance. So, I panted. The girl looked back and currently running through the rain. I saw one time during high school, she abruptly decided to home. The sun shone harshly down onto the park. What am I doing here?
You do not remember quitting the game, but that's almost to be expected. The effect of Rabbit Rush on the mind is something of an addictive mystery. You notice nobody's in the arcade, another quiet and lonely day. You walk to the front and find a note on the desk.
My dear friend, it seems as if we just missed each other. I swear it was you that I saw outside. A crowd had pushed their way past me, and before I knew it, I'd lost you again. Oh well, as long as you keep looking for me, I'm sure we'll meet again. P.S. I've hidden the key close by. See if you can find it.
With nobody around, you can sneak behind. You feel sad, but you're not sure why. You then notice it's pitch black outside. You use the key, open the front door to check, and nothing. The void, a desk. You turn around, and the arcade remains material, but somehow the street is not. So you step outside, and seemingly maintaining your form, you turn, the arcade is gone. Another note.
My dear friend, if you ever find yourself lost, escape back here. This room will always be open for you.
A light turns on. You jolt upward. A room, the desk, blank walls, 5 doors. The door on the left looks awfully familiar. Without much hesitation, with an odd feeling of ease, you approach it. Building F, ground plan. You remember what this place is. Classrooms on the left and right, but you're not sure where you're headed. You enter one of the classrooms in an attempt to get help. No trace, save the chalkboard, perhaps left over from the previous lesson. A bunny rabbit, eyes closed and back turned, as if counting to 10, sits next to the instructions. But you leave the classroom and wonder, perhaps there is someone elsewhere. You enter another room nearby but locked. You try another and it's essentially identical. You get 6, they get 9. You turn to leave and then see crosses on the wall. You enter another room. You lose. Try again. Who was that? What's going on? You move back down the hall, moving quietly, trying to find the other player.
of this game. Back to the first room, you're met with info you already know. You leave, pace back up the hall, you get 6, they get 9, you leave, see on the walls, noughts and crosses, tic-tac-toe. You soon realize the position you're in. You can only put circles where there are doors. That means this game isn't fair. You play a few, lose every one. There's surely no way to win. You try to leave again, but the metal door, it won't budge. So reluctantly you keep playing. Yet the odds are against you. They could make a mistake. You run from one classroom to another, desperately trying to mark off squares, to get to them before they do. But it's no use. No matter how fast you are, what tactics you use, what room you go into first or last or in the middle, none of it goes anywhere, none of it works. You're stuck in a school and there's no escape and the chalkboards mock you every turn away from them. You're desperate now, from door to door, inside and out, keep going, keep letting my trip help you. This is the only hope you've got. Every mistake they make, they keep circling. You enter the classroom. You win is adorned on the chalkboard. Victory assured. Their X misplaced. Commending yourself, you see another note.
My dear friend, what a confusing puzzle. I spent hours wandering around in circles until I finally figured it out. But you were always good at those things, so I'm sure you're fine. Do you remember this book? Mrs. Dunstan used to read it to us.
You do remember this book. Not the name nor the content, but the feeling is familiar. And then you realize this is directed at you. Panicked, you step out, try a classroom door and it's locked again, but you walk slowly to the end of the hall. Is this girl still here? All you have is the fire door. So this time, you go over and you push it. It swings open. You find yourself on a balcony. The sky somehow isn't blue, it's a thick shade of mustard, like the sun is consuming the whole earth. The whole earth and you. You turn around and see the corridor is gone. Railing guards surround the whole roof, save this one part of the platform. You lean over the edge with trepidation. Nothing, except yellow turned brown. But then, you feel a calling. And then, you fall.
I closed the game. Yawning, I glanced at the small clock in the corner of my screen. 2:54. Guess I've been playing for longer than I thought. Hey, want to go to... I blinked. Who was I talking to? I glanced around my room. Blank walls, bare bones furnishing, plastic bottles and empty packets of junk food lay strewn around the carpet. The bare, desolate apartment was a sight I was used to seeing by now. Yet, tonight, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Strange. Whatever. Guess I'll sleep now.
You awake at a desk. Not your desk, but a desk. And you remember these doors. You go by them all, instinctively trying to listen for sound behind them. You see the blue one and walk over. It feels safe. It feels good. It feels like the beginning of something important to you. You pull the door open. You don't know this room, but you feel like you do. Like the person who would live here, or at least lived in it once. A cat, a music box, an alphabet chart, some alphabet blocks. Who is it that you're reminded of? Their name is at the tip of your tongue.
A note rests on the drawers.
My dear friend, I don't think I've ever told you this before, but I had a pet rabbit once called Juno. She was killed by the neighbor's dog when I was 7. To this day, I can still remember the sight of her mangled body in a pool of blood, the red gleaming against the pale grass. That might be why I'm so afraid of dogs.
A diary entry, perhaps? You're not so sure. You notice the rabbit on the bottom shelf. It looks lonely. You look up and see more rabbits. 7, to be exact. 7 little rabbits.
I closed the game. Yawning, I glanced at the small clock in the corner of my screen. 13:37. Stretching my neck, I hear a sharp crack. I winced at the sound.
Maybe you should stop sleeping in front of the screen.
A girl sat on the bed beside me. Hunched in a corner, she held a book within her hands. The Life and Death of Barbara Chang. I knew her well. On a good day, you can even say that the two of us were friends. I wasn't sleeping. That was a power nap. You know, to restore the tremendous amount of energy my vast intellect consumes. The girl looked impressed.
Wow. I can't believe you can actually say that without being embarrassed.
Hey, no reason to be embarrassed by the truth. The girl stood up.
Anywho's, I'll be heading back now.
I stretched and reached for my coat. I'll go with you. Out of food. The girl raised an eyebrow.
The mighty genius, reduced to physical activity from lack of food? Surely you could just meditate the hunger away or something.
Hey, I know that I raised some pretty high expectations, but even I have to eat.
Huh. Amazing expectations might be the more suitable term.
I'll interpret that in my favour. Anyway, time is money, so let's chat while we walk. What do you know about relativism? We were walking through the local suburb. Our places were only a few blocks apart, and it only took 10 minutes or so to walk from one place to another. The girl scratched her chin.
I know what it's about, and obviously I've heard of it, but if you wanted me to discuss it with you under an academic context, then no, I don't.
Whoa, talk about pedantic. Wonder where she picked that up from. Well then, I said with a flourish, let me depart upon your unenlightened mind what is but a small fragment of the infinite wisdom that—
Yeah, get to the point.
Relativism, the concept that points of view have no absolute truth or validity, having only relative, subjective value according to differences in perception and consideration.
Wikipedia.
Did you just quote Wikipedia?
Relativism. The answer to the great questions. What is life? What is knowledge? The answer? Up to you.
You know, I'm feeling very let down.
Relativism. The ultimate justification to the phrase, well, that's just your opinion. I struck a dramatic pose.
Is this another one of your pathetic attempts at justifying your twisted world values?
Define pathetic and twisted, 'cause that's just like your opinion, you know? The girl sighed and shook her head.
Never mind. You can go ahead and stay in that little reality of yours. Oh.
The girl stopped.
Which reminds me.
Hmm?
You know that game you're always playing? I heard from a friend about a secret code for it.
I smirked. You're too gullible. People make that crap up all the time. She shrugged.
Hey, it's worth a shot. You probably waste more time doing dumber things anyway.
All right, let's hear it. What's the code? The girl smiled and said, I stepped out of the grocery store. Placing my wallet back into my pocket, my hands brushed against an unfamiliar object. I frowned. There was a crumpled note within my pocket. The paper was aged and yellowing, and the writing looked as if it was handwritten using black ink. The note carried only one line.
In the shop, click on the crystal ball 4 times.
Back in the arcade again, sweating and confused. You've got to stop doing this to yourself, you think. Where once Rabbit Rush brought you joy, it's making you feel cold. Alone? Forgetful? You run desperately to the front, hoping to let yourself out. Locked. A note is attached to the window.
My dear friend, I must admit that when I came back to this arcade, I was very tempted to hop on a machine for one last game. I wasn't able to. Perhaps you could do the honours.
One last game. You're not sure that you want to, but you feel you have no choice. This note, it's speaking to you. It wants you to play.
Oh, finally! Oh, apologies, technical difficulties. We are back. I have fixed the glitch. I don't really know what caused it. I don't really know what I did to fix it, but the game is working. The save data is intact, I think. That's my highest score. Whatever. Gonna get some new stuff. I'm just gonna play another game. Keep it simple. No idea where the rabbit's gone. Don't miss him, to be honest. He was kind of weird. Okay. I thought someone came into my room then. I don't know if you guys could hear the door opening. Sound that must have been in the game. What is this? What is this supposed to be? This wasn't here before. Whoa. Oh, real change of tone now, huh? Is this from the glitch? Is this meant to happen? Oh, it must be mean to happen, but like this is how you enable it? Doors? Do these open anything? I don't. Make some music. All I want's a new level, man. I mean, it's just... Oh. I forgot a bit. I was speechless for a second then. I thought that was my room. No, my room's not that messy. It's just similar colours. Imagine if this game doxed you. Fine. Do you think the book gives me a new level? Please let it give me a new level, because that would be great.
In a dark, dark house. In a dark, dark wood, there was a dark, dark house. And in that dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark corridor. Down that dark, dark corridor, there was a dark, dark room. In that dark, dark room, there was a dark, dark table. On that dark, dark table, there was a dark, dark box. And in that dark, dark box, there was a...
As you leave the game, you realize someone's here. You turn and see the rabbit, the shopkeeper rabbit, is somehow out of the screen and glitching in real time in front of you. This has to be a dream. This has got to be a dream. You think you back away, you back to the wall, and then you run. You run the front door, the front door, the front door, the front door, the front door. Go. Just run, you stupid idiot. Just go. It's locked. Okay, you put nothing. Turn, and you can see him through the cabinets now. Ow. The other side, more doors, running, back again, arcade, back in the arcade, office doors, somebody, maybe this, if they'll do them open, they won't open, it's here, he's got me cornered, I won't, I can't.
I closed the game.
We should leave now.
The girl stood in my doorway. I nodded and grabbed my coat. We stepped out into the night. We ran. At this time of the night, the city shimmered with all the intensity of a giant Christmas decoration. Backlit signs lighted our path, yet none pointed to our destination. Clothes, 25% off, Christmas deals, a new Android device, the humdrum of everyday life. A thin laugh escaped from my lips. How close they were, and yet how far. Close enough to touch, and yet felt like worlds away. Not a single thing stirred within our sights. Nothing but ourselves, the signs, and the scrolling earth. The girl's orange scarf danced behind her, a flaming trail flickering through the night air. My own movements were sluggish in comparison, something I resented back when we were kids. Now, I cannot feel anything but appreciation for her athleticism. Without it, I have no doubt that it would already have caught us. We ran, and we ran, and we ran. I stumbled and tripped over a curb. The world stopped for a moment, and then came crashing down. My ears rang, and a dull pain pounded in my head. Opening my eyes, a dark liquid seeped into them, blurring my sight. Guess I've hit my limit. The girl stopped and looked back at me. Was it terror that I saw on her face? Or sadness?
I'm sorry.
I opened my mouth, but I couldn't think of anything to say.
I'm so sorry.
It was coming. The girl gestured behind her.
Quick, in there!
She pointed towards a nearby alleyway. But I was tired. The noise ringing in my ears grew louder. It was coming. I smiled. Ah, so this is how it ends. Guess this will all be over now. From the corner of my vision, I could see the girl trying to pull me up. Her hands felt so cold. I closed my eyes. I stood in the middle of an alleyway, alone. The girl was nowhere to be seen. Yes, I remember now. I was with another person, somebody important, but they're gone. I'm alone. I closed the game. My head throbbed with an overwhelming pain. I looked down. My clothes were covered in sweat and dirt, and my whole body ached as if I had just run a marathon. Feeling nauseous, I vomited onto the floor.
Are you all right?
I looked behind me. A girl was standing in my room. A bright orange scarf was wrapped around her neck. My head pounded. Who are you? I staggered and began falling. Strong arms quickly held me up. The girl clutched my shoulders. Cold, but solid and real. I glanced up to look at her face. For some reason, I couldn't quite seem to see it. The girl, however, was weeping. This I could sense. Are you all right? The girl smiled and shook her head. She looked at me and said,
Never forget. This is not a dream. My dear friend, are you still searching for me? Have you given up? I wonder. Perhaps it's time for the two of us to stop playing. Perhaps it's time to quit this game. My dear friend, this will be my last letter. It has been a long journey for both of us, but now we can finally meet once more. I'll be waiting ahead.
You awake and feel rain. You back up. The cabinet stands, alone. You wonder where this is, what this is. You turn and see the house, and you know this house. From where exactly you're not so sure. You walk closer, admire it, its lack of texture eerie yet oddly calming. You see screens inside. You enter, and you watch, and you remember. You begin to remember.
My dear friend.
And cut!
Bless you. Nate, are you sick?
No, I'm okay.
Are you okay?
I'm okay. Just like a little cold or something.
Alright, let's wrap up the theatrics. And let's talk about what's going on with this game. Pretty cool, right? Insane to think that this nearly became lost media. I mean, what a loss that would have been. Anyway, you may remember some developer details from earlier. While Rabbit Rush was showcased at IGF in 2014, this game was originally made in 2013 by a small team at RMIT led by Chen. And 2013, let me tell you, what a year for indie games. Rabbit Rush is one of those innovative experiences that takes after other first-person exploration games of that very era. The Stanley Parable, Gone Home, Antechamber, and the likes. Or at least it would take after them, had Kevin taken any inspiration from them whatsoever. I managed to get in touch with him over email, and he told me that his motivations came from a completely different place.
I think my main inspo was manga and visual novels I read at the time. I've never actually played the Stanley Parable till years after. I think the idea of a game within a game is something that occurs to a lot of developers, as the medium is perfect for cross-genre experimentation.
Remember Half-Life? This was one of the first games which took first-person narrative storytelling seriously. The world is unfolding right there, in front of you, rather than in a pre-rendered, Hollywoodized cutscene. That emphasis on a first-person perspective is more common now, but back then it was a brisk step away from the other techniques of a time gone by. A clean cut from the half-baked tales found inside many a shooter, but also from tedious adventure game mechanics. A first-person perspective situates the player inside the video game world, and has them interact with it, become truly immersed in it. When the guns get removed, these games usually become walking simulators, because, well, that's the main thing. You walk around in them, exploring the space you've been placed in. Half-Life 2 served as the ground zero for the most iconic one, of course, hosting the original modded version of the Stanley Parable in 2011. There's quite a lot of walking sims today. The Beginner's Guide, Firewatch, What Remains of Edith Finch, they all have unique means of telling a story, but they all share one key component. You're there. You're not experiencing it through some cartoon character or copy-paste Doom Guy clone. Sometimes you're experiencing it through a character that isn't you, but you're seeing through their eyes, through their vision. And that allows writers to give us those minute details about characters that we wouldn't really feel otherwise. When you boot up Firewatch, for instance, you're inside the mind of Henry, and you get to see his whole setup. Rather than inferring details from the outside of his cabin, we get to see his past, the collection of trinkets he's brought with him to this point. And in Rabbit Rush, whoever the main character is meant to be, we're really immersed in whatever it is they're feeling. Confusion, despair, desperation, all of these perfectly emulated through the horror mechanics, the restarts, the sudden cuts in the flashbacks. What's interesting in Kevin's case, of course, is that he comes from a completely different world of storytelling. He's a big fan of visual novels, as you may have been able to tell, and our aforementioned roots in first-person shooters didn't influence Rabbit Rush all that much, conceptually speaking. And yet the game relies on that same mechanic, giving us little exposition and then throwing us right in there, forcing us to pay attention to the world around our character, to figure out the story literally for ourselves. What Kevin does differently is he subverts the medium. He gives us a first-person perspective, but also a third-person one. Dream sequences and surreal encounters. He never explicitly states who we even are, who we're meant to be. Are we the man with the memory loss, or are we a separate entity in the arcade, merely observing his plight?
The original idea behind the game was the theme dystopias are internal realities. We really wanted to make a narrative-based game that wasn't simply a game with a story tacked on, but a game that was irrevocably tied at some core level with the narrative. A story that can only be told through the game, and a game that can only exist with this story.
The team behind RR is, well, not quite as active as I'd like. Kevin Chen is still in the industry, but he wasn't the only man behind its creation. Also on the team was Joe Liu, responsible then for the 2D sprites and later responsible for the 3D art in their 2020 collaboration, Necrobarista. Working on the 3D modelling for Rabbit Rush was Laura Hales, who I managed to talk to, and who continues to sing the praises of Kevin's tenacity. This was alongside Sarah Lynn, who seems to have disappeared from the face of the earth. Further listed under other resources is Tamara Clark, but I'm not sure where she is either. Still active are panorama creator Peter Halas, who still does photography, and sound designer Murray Lorden, who has since become a teacher. The identity of Rebecca Lynn, the game's sole voice actor, is also a mystery, but there's probably some relation to Sarah there.
Rabbit Rush was our first year uni group project assignment. I made Icarus in the first semester, found other students I liked the art of, the others were all artists, and used their arts in each of the various subgames for Rabbit Rush, which we made in the second semester.
But Rabbit Rush ended up being more than just a mere student project. Being a student entrant for the Independent Games Festival, it may not have won the grand prize, but still earned an honourable mention. Other honourable mentions in separate categories that year were Superhot, Don't Starve, and Crypt of the Necrodancer. It was a busy year for the indie scene. The accolades don't stop there, though. It was well received by reviewers on Giant Bomb, with commenters consistently praising its highly unique style. Not only that, but RMIT themselves showcased the game in their degree and diploma guide for prospective students.
Caterpillar Lane, a first-year games student team, received a coveted honourable mention in the 2014 Independent Game Festival Student Showcase. Laura Hales, Sarah Lynn, Kevin Chen, and Tamara Clark won with their game Rabbit Rush, a multi-layered psychological drama hiding behind an impeccably constructed arcade game, to showcase at over 300 entries from 200 universities of undergraduates, honours and master's students.
Games like Rabbit Rush make me wonder, what other indie titles have gone under the radar for this long? Would the world of walking sims look different if Rabbit Rush had a little bit more time in the limelight? And what about these other honourable mentions? Is there anything of interest here? Now that we're familiar with its creation, let's talk about the themes in this game. Remember our friend Stephen Beirne? Well, he's written a highly captivating article on our favourite long-lost arcade-style game, and he has a lot to say about it. In his article, Give Sorrow Words, Stephen discusses a number of themes found in Rabbit Rush. I'm going to pick out a handful from the bunch. Ideas surrounding escapism, self-indulgence, and genre non-conformity. The first topic is where we ought to start, as it reveals Stephen's interpretation of the story, and it's not one I would have considered.
I think the girl with the orange scarf died. The video game that occupied those nights when she was around becomes a safe zone from the reality of her death. A world where the author can go and relive the ambient feel of her companionship and escape the fact of her loss. Through her notes and clues, she urges us to progress through the game, solve its puzzles, break out of the happy fiction, and recollect ourselves to face the truth.
One thing that is interesting about Rabbit Rush is that you don't actually have to play through the main game. When you're in the arcade, you've got the option to go back to your screen, to keep playing on the computer. You don't have to follow the notes, you can easily escape back to the Arcadian frenzy that was. I recall that line.
Whenever she came over, she'd just read her books or fiddle around with her phone while I played my games.
Escaping back to the arcade is a means of reliving that. The two characters in this game don't always acknowledge each other explicitly when hanging out. They're quite happy to just relax in one another's company. And if you don't have to acknowledge a person, it's pretty easy to pretend that they're still around. It's pretty easy to relive that old feeling. And it'd be pretty tempting to want to continually relive that, if that person made you feel safe, secure, if they made you feel complete. Stephen says Rabbit Rush is, in a bizarre twist, trying to criticize the medium it belongs to through this plotline. It's trying to warn us of the self-indulgent nature of video games. In this tough situation, the girl in the orange scarf wants us to face reality and wake up from a dreamlike state. We shouldn't use games to run away from feelings we dislike, from the real issues we ought to face. And this works well with the game in a game trope as it would also mean the game criticizes games as a medium. Maybe even criticizes itself. The girl certainly criticizes our main character for doing just that.
You can go ahead and stay in that little reality of yours.
The protagonist prefers to be a relativist because it means he can shape the world around him. He can escape from the real world into Rabbit Rush, from the harsh reality of loss, forgetting all by living through a video game. But if your perception of the world is anything but reality, is it really real? Is anything that happens in Rabbit Rush meant to be real? Or is it all just hallucination on the part of our protag, induced by too much gaming or too much memory repression? This is where Rabbit Rush's non-conformity with genre expectations really shines. Because, for one, it actually carries. The base game, Rabbit Rush, the arcade game, is itself really good. The puzzle elements are tough, but they're not too hard. The visual novel portions are well-paced, and the platformer is a little airy, but it still plays well. None of them need overt explanations or tutorials. The game gives you the controls, sometimes not even that, and then throws you in the deep end. But with a little persistence, you always manage to climb out. And this often enhances the meta-narrative. The constant and sudden dips into the variety of difficult games serve to disorientate. They make us feel the same kind of confusion that the main character is feeling. We can never quite stay ahead of the game, and things around us are always changing. But personally, I think Stephen might be a little bit off the mark. While his analysis reveals a great deal about the game's mechanics, I don't think the girl is dead. I think there is some genuine memory loss that our protagonist is suffering from. The flashback to the trip and fall, I think, that's the catalyst for their amnesia. This is what causes their continued confusion throughout the game. We're just entering halfway through and occupying their consciousness, but there's clearly a backstory here, and that's what gets elaborated. They manage to barely remember what kickstarted their confused stupor. It's not clear if they're always re-remembering these things, or if we're literally living through their fugue state, as it were. But it's not meant to be clear. It wouldn't be clear to the person experiencing it either. In that sense, the game is about losing someone, but not the entirety of them. For both the protagonist and the girl in the orange scarf, they still communicate with each other, but they can never re-establish the old relationship they once had. The climax for this is towards the end, when the protagonist repeatedly forgets who the girl is. It puts a strain on their relationship, which was once very close, having been established in their formative years. They go from knowing each other intimately to one of them not even recognizing the other, forcibly disconnected. While the ending itself is optimistic, it's not clear whether or not the protagonist will get better after this story ends. The arcade game itself is about moving away from where you've once laid your roots. It's about being forced out, constantly on the run. While there are great highs once you breed lots of rabbits, there are difficult lows when a bunch of them fall off screen or don't go fast enough or get hit by enemy spiders. The rabbits can never return to where they once were, and are constantly under threat if they make the wrong move, much in the same way the protagonist is. Our main character can never go back to his old life before the accident. He can remember spots of it, he can always have a bit of a nostalgic hit, but he can never fully recapture it. That experience will never be real again. In the same way the rabbits are constantly chasing a new home, the protagonist is constantly chasing a memory-induced hit of serotonin, of the safety and security he once felt with his dear friend. On this reading, we're encouraged to keep playing the game, to see the whole experience all the way through, even if the classrooms seem unintuitive, even if it means remembering memories we'd rather not relive, like the mauling of the girl's pet, Juno. It's all worth it to recapture the fading feelings of happiness, the genuine connection they once had. Rather than abstaining from self-indulgence, maybe committing to it will bring us back to something we loved, help us get closer to the old life we had, the better life we had. Well, either way, it was a fun game, and it was completely free. Thanks for coming with me on this genre-bending frenzy. There's more in the pipeline yet, and that video on bartender simulators will come out sooner or later. Probably later. Guess I'll see you next time.